Most Indian refiners have stopped purchasing crude oil from Russia except two public sector oil companies and one private refiner, Indian Oil Corporation Limited, Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited and Russia-backed Nayara Energy in January 2026. Hello, I'm Udit Bubna and today I will tell you how India's crude oil purchases are shaping in January. Reliance Industries Limited paused Russian purchases in January 2026. Mangalore Refinery and Petrochemicals Limited remained offline since November, and Hindustan Petroleum's joint venture with Mittal Energy (HMEL) took only a single shipment in December 2025, whereas Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited recorded zero Russian crude purchases in the months of December and January. Overall, India's crude oil imports from Russia are easing, with volumes expected to average around 1.2 million barrels per day in January 2026, a 35% drop from November 2025 and broadly in line with December 2025 levels. Sumit Ritolia, a lead analyst for refining and modeling at global trade intelligence firm Kepler, told ThePrint, and I quote, India's Russian crude intake remains material in early 2026, but not as high as seen over last few years. But the near-term trajectory is softer, more selective, and increasingly compliance-led, reflecting higher execution risk versus the peak buying pattern seen in 2023-2025. It is to be noted that all the data for January quoted in the story is of 20th day of the month. The decline in Russian crude oil purchases follows a sanctions imposed by the US Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, which targeted two Russian oil majors, Lukoil and Rosneft. Announced on 22nd October 2025, the sanctions came into effect from 21st November 2025 onwards. Data from Kepler shows that India imported around 1.1 million barrels per day of Russian crude oil till 20th January 2026 from non-sanctioned entities. Indian Oil Corporation emerged as the largest buyer with an average purchase of 0.47 million barrels per day, followed by Nayara Energy at around 0.44 million barrels per day and Bharat Petroleum at about 0.20 million barrels per day. While Russia continues to be a key supplier, recent cargo patterns point to a deliberate pullback by large refiners. According to Ritolia of Kepler, the refiners are stepping back ahead of European Union sanctions coming into effect from 21st January, while expectations around broader India-US trade agreement are also encouraging a more cautious stance at the margin. New European Union sanctions effective 21st January 2026 will prohibit the import from third countries of petroleum products made from crude oil originating in Russia, adding to compliance and execution risk for buyers. Now coming to Iran and Venezuela issue, fresh sanctions on Iran are unlikely to have a direct impact on India's crude imports, as New Delhi has not officially purchased Iranian oil since mid of 2019 when US sanction waivers expired. However, according to Ritolia, there could be possible indirect effects, warning that higher compliance requirements along with shipping and insurance risk linked to grey zone trade could add pressure. Also, any curbs on Iranian exports could also tighten global crude supply. Before US sanctions, Iran was a key supplier to India, with imports averaging around 0.45 to 0.50 million barrels per day, including about 520,000 barrels per day in 2018. On the Venezuela issue, there is little change for India, as Venezuelan crude oil imports have not shown any uptick in January 2026, with the last shipment dating back to May 2025, largely bought by Reliance Industries. Current flows from Venezuela remains absent with no immediate signs of return. Globally, China and United States were the largest buyer of Venezuelan crude in January 2026, importing about 319,000 barrels per day and 179,000 barrels per day respectively. On the India front, as Russian volumes soften, crude imports from the Middle East have risen over the past 2 months. Indian refiners are increasingly leaning on Middle Eastern grades to fill the gap left by Russia, drawn by supply reliability and simpler logistics in a sanction-sensitive environment. Reliance Industries has pivoted towards Middle Eastern crude in the aftermath of Russia-related sanctions, with data showing imports of around 0.9 million barrels per day in December 2025 and January 2026, up from an average range of 0.3 to 0.7 million barrels per day between January 2025 to November 2025. India imported around 1.06 million barrels per day of crude oil from Iraq till 20th January 2026, the highest level in the past 8 months and 18% higher than the full month of December. Saudi Arabia emerged as the third largest supplier in January, shipping close to 0.9 million barrels per day, a 25% jump over previous month and the highest in over a year. The data suggests a clear rebalancing of India's crude slate, with Middle Eastern flows moving higher and Russian inflows trending lower as the refiners prioritize reliability of supply and sourcing flexibility. Thank you for watching. For more such videos, please subscribe to the Print YouTube channel.